Live.
Live.
Welcome to the Fat2Fit HQ podcast. I'm your guest host, Jason Moore of the Dominate Stress podcast. And along with me here is, I'm sure you're familiar with, is Carol Salva of the Firearms Radio Network. And in this podcast, we're chronicling our journey from fat to fit, and we talk about pursuing a healthier lifestyle, but not only just diet, all areas of life. So, welcome to the show, Carol.
Hey, thanks. I am so glad to be here. Thanks. Thanks. No, seriously, thank you for doing that, Jason. I love it. I love it. This is wonderful. I don't have a co-host right now, so I'm sucking people in to be my co-host as much as I can.
As long as you don't mind that they're really sunburned and a little sleepy looking, then uh,
99.9% of our listeners are just audio. So you're fine with your sunburn over there.
okay, perfect. Good, I can
Yeah.
hide behind the mic.
I should say that most of our videos are on YouTube, on the Firearms Radio Network YouTube channel, and right now we are live and on the Firearms Radio Network Google Plus page. And then, when this video comes out, today is June 30th, and I'm actually going to post this one like by July 1st, just in a day or two, and then it will be over on YouTube, so people can go to our show notes, and today's show notes are at fat2fithq.com/097, and you can scroll down and click on the video and see Jason's sunburn for yourself.
All right, fine. Just make sure to leave a comment that says it doesn't look too bad, right?
And even if it does, tell him it doesn't look too bad. Help his stress. Help his stress. No, you look great. But before we start chatting it up about your sunburn more, tell us, Jason, I love having you on as a guest this week. It's really important for me and I think a lot of listeners. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about like how you got started in all of this, and then a little bit about your podcast and what you're doing now, the app and everything,
Sure,
please.
yeah, definitely. So, taking a step back in time a little bit, growing up, I was into sports and I played a lot of soccer, but I like to play a lot of other sports too. And I always thought that I was a pretty healthy person because I was like a skinny kid basically. But over time, I started realizing that no matter how hard I worked, I couldn't get faster or stronger. I couldn't keep up with other kids on the field, and I just thought, it was because I wasn't trying hard enough or something. And then in college, I stopped working out regularly and started getting a whole lot softer, um, and yeah, to say the least. And then I definitely couldn't get back into working out very much, and it was hard to stay in shape. So, long story short, I started diving into kind of my health and my diet and exercise and trying to learn more about it and see what's going on with me. And also, in my family, we have a lot of health issues that run in the family: diabetes and heart disease and alcoholism and all this other stuff. And my sister also um, struggled with a lot of issues, and so part of me wanted to figure stuff out for me, what's going on with her. Long story short, I got originally found CrossFit, and that kind of showed me some new things like paleo and different ways of looking at working out, and it kind of evolved from there. And several years later, I was coaching for several years as CrossFit and also as a personal trainer. Started up a meetup in San Antonio and inherited the meetup in Houston and
Yeah.
kind of built those up. And those are paleo-oriented meetups, but they're really just kind of healthy living meetups where people just get together and be social and talk about being healthy and stuff in person. And those have about 1,000 people in them now
Yeah.
between the two of them. And through all that, people decided that I needed to put stuff out there online, so I thought I'd give it a shot and started a podcast, which has, it's kind of skyrocketed. It's a little bit mind-blowing, and that's called the Dominate Stress podcast. And um, that kind of brings me back to, through all of my research of diet, exercise, and lifestyle, productivity, all these things, it all kind of ended up leading back towards stress, in my opinion, whether it's you're stressing your inside with the wrong type of food or stressing yourself out about trying to be train harder or run more or whatever it is. It's all comes back to stress, and stress could really undermine any of the goals that you have, including losing weight or getting in better shape or, you know, getting promoted at your job or starting a business or raising children. Whatever it is that you're trying to do, stress can really be like a ball and chain and drag you down from accomplishing those things. And so that kind of also led me to discover heart rate variability, which is it's in a nutshell, basically, it's a way to measure your stress at any given moment. And so then I developed an app for that.
There's an app for that.
Yeah. And that's free out on the App Store. It's called Elite HRV, and that's been a lot of fun doing that, and kind of running an app business is really, it's an interesting experience too. But now we reach, hundreds of people with that app as well. It's actually fairly new, so it's growing pretty rapidly. But that was kind of a verbal, dump of everything I've been up to for the past couple of years.
Well, that's what we want. We want to know because many of our listeners may not know who you are because, being on the Firearms Radio Network, one of the things I love about our show is that we are not, our audience is not your typical health nuts, pretty much. I
Right.
mean, we're health nuts, but we're just a different variety of nut.
Oh yeah.
And so if I am at Paleo FX or if I'm at somewhere like that and I ask about Jason Moore, he's like, oh yeah, that's that guy's got the new app. He's the HRV guy. But in my other circles, a lot of people just don't know, and so I think it's super important communities like ours that can bring people like you in so that we can go, okay, what is this? Is this something that I should be paying attention to? How that could be hugely stressful, or it has been for me, is trying to figure out like who should I be listening to? What should I be paying attention to? Should I be just like they say, meditation is so important to bring your stress down, but I stress when I meditate. Like I don't even try to meditate anymore because it's stressful for me. Like I'm not doing it right. I'm just sitting there going,
Yep.
I'm still thinking about work. So I have kind of switched to a long walk
Yeah.
or something calming. But I want to say one thing real quick about what you said about your paleo meetup groups, because I think that's very important for people to hear. This whole paleo thing, it's so interesting to me because it's really the way I look at it, and I'm sure Rob Wolf would go, oh my God, that's not the definition of paleo at all. But the way I look at it is just that real food. Yeah, you can look at it as what a hunter-gatherer would have back in the day, the ancestral caveman person. But really, it's just a lot of people, to me, trying to eat in a more natural way.
Hmm.
Your things that are like vegetables that you could pick up and eat raw, and and animal proteins and things like that, nuts and things like that. So your meetups, I have taken people to in Houston who are not paleo, who loved the meetup because
Yeah.
we're at a restaurant where you can get anything and everybody's ordering these healthy dishes and we're all talking about science and, oh, I don't do that. Do you do that? I don't do that. It was fantastic for my kids to be there to see other kids so they don't think we're the only family that cares about this way of eating. So do
Well,
you have a lot of people come that really aren't paleo, they're just curious or just want to hang out?
oh yeah, definitely. I would say at least half the people that show up are either they know, like they just heard about paleo, or they may not have heard anything and somebody brought them as a friend or a family member.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like the whole importance behind the meetup, really, is just getting together and seeing other people, because we're all struggling and trying to do different things and learning and helping each other out, and just getting together and having fun with it and like people, there's one gal who brings her husband, and every single time he orders something with bread in it, and it's not a big deal, you know. It's
No,
like,
he's not kicked out, you mean?
yeah, he's not kicked out. It's just we're just there to have fun and learn and you know, help each other out. And if he starts thinking about it over time and maybe someday tries going gluten free or something, and if it helps him out, then that's awesome. Otherwise, in the meantime, he's welcome to come have fun with us and hang out and you know talk.
Right? Isn't it just about the learning? Because I would love to get to a point in my life where I could have a burger on a regular basis with the bun and not feel like it's going to totally derail me. I'm I made it I'm still in that experimental stage where things are every time. I mean, I'm on a in a bad place right now because I experimented enough that it got me it put some weight back on me. Try not to stress about it. But you know, just the knowing, it's just like what you said about the stress. It's not like you're not going to have stress anymore. It's learning to manage that.
Oh
Same
yeah.
thing with diet. It's not like you're never going to eat like that. It's just that if you know what different macros do, you might change up sometimes how you eat.
Yep, and yeah, that's what's kind of what I emphasize to people is that learning about yourself and taking things into your own hands is the best thing that you can do. And that way you don't have to rely on any guru or any, you know, doctor or expert. And I know that those people serve good purposes and they have a lot of them have really good information.
Right?
But until you apply it and pay attention to how that information affects you, then you just don't know what works best for you, you know?
Yeah.
And that's why, like you said, I call it the Dominate Stress Show. It's not the no stress show because you can't have no stress, but you can learn to control and even maybe dominate the stress that you do experience.
That's a golden because I keep hearing now if I'm listening to any sciencey shows where they talk about even exercise, it's a stress. It's a purposeful stress. We're stressing our bodies on purpose,
Hmm.
but then you have to understand what you need to do after that to counter that, and different things, our jobs and everything. Tell us a little bit about just for somebody who's just starting to think about stress, what happens physiologically that we should know about at a real fundamental level for stress, and what would you say a newbie like me should know about stress?
Sure. So to just at a high level, stress kind of triggers your fight or flight type reaction in your body. And so I guess let me take a step back. You've got two branches of your nervous system. One is called the sympathetic and the other is called the parasympathetic.
Okay.
And those two branches like control everything from your body temperature to activating things for fat storage or releasing that fat storage for energy, and all different things, breathing rate, heart rate, pupil dilation, digestion actually is controlled by these systems. And one of
Hmm.
those systems prioritizes action like fight or flight type deal, which is the sympathetic, and then the other system, the parasympathetic, is the rest and digest system, is kind of what it's called. And
Wow.
so when you're stressed, whether it's mental, physical, emotional, relationship, whatever type of stress it is, it activates that fight or flight system. And so what the fight or flight system says is stop digesting and elevate blood pressure and elevate blood sugar and all this stuff because a lion's about to eat you or something like that, right? That's what your body thinks, whether or not it's even just worrying about getting to school on time or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's kind of just an important thing to realize is that all of these things that we have in life that are seem to be like little minor stressors that all add up cumulatively to this giant activation of our sympathetic nervous system,
Huh.
and that affects digestion, that affects your decision making, and it affects how you regulate blood sugar and how you store fat and all of this stuff. And so it's a big deal.
It's a very big deal. It's funny because a few years ago, I wasn't hearing anybody talking about stress much or rest and recovery much at all. And I wasn't totally plugged into the health and fitness community, but any podcasts I listened to were getting more efficient with your workout or getting more effective with your workouts. But now there's a lot of the rest, recovery, cortisol. I hear a lot about cortisol from a hormonal level. Tell me what I'm thinking about.
Yeah,
What
sure.
I'm trying to
So
explain is probably not right.
that's okay. No, cortisol, and I'm not like a doctor or scientist, but the best understanding I have of cortisol is that one, it's an essential hormone for life. And so it's not a demon or whatever.
Okay.
You need it to live. And so cortisol works in conjunction with all that other nervous system action that I said, and a lot of other hormones like insulin and adrenaline and all the other things that you may have heard about. But cortisol specifically does a few things. When you're stressed, you increase your cortisol production, and that also helps to basically wake your body up and keep it alert and on high stress. It's part of that fight or flight experience.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing it does is it signals that there's something wrong, so I need to store energy for later. And what that means is I'm basically going to collect whatever I can and store it as fat around my midsection. And so that's one
What?
thing. Yeah. So because if your body's experiencing some kind of basically like let's say you're in a drought or in a starving, like you can't find food regularly, that's stress that the body would experience traditionally before civilization.
Okay.
And so we would secrete cortisol in that case, and that would help draw energy from our blood and from wherever else we can get it and store it as fat around the midsection in case that we don't have food tomorrow, right?
Ah.
And so I might be like stumbling over my words or something, but essentially that's the reason why cortisol gets demonized is because it has that kind of storage around the midsection of fat kind of behavior.
Well, we
And then
can.
the other thing it does too is it keeps you awake at night, for example, and it can throw off your circadian rhythm. So when you're tired or tired during the day and wired at night, a lot of times your cortisol cycle is off. And the way it should work is you should have basically higher cortisol in the morning, and then it fades out throughout the day and naturally kind of brings you down, and then in the evening, should be your lowest cortisol and you're ready to go to sleep at that time. And
Should be.
should be, that's right, that's how it should be. And it's actually the reverse for a lot of people in our modern society, just because we have a lot of other things going on, like artificial light affects melatonin production, and melatonin is another hormone, and that also has a relationship with cortisol. And so things like that can be throwing your cortisol cycle off. Then obviously, like I said, all those other stressors, emotional work stressors, and all this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing too is cortisol doesn't just create fat out of nowhere. It has to have something to create it out of. And so if you think about when you have high stress and high amounts of cortisol running in your body, and then you're eating things that are sugary, for example,
Mm-hmm.
so you spike insulin, which is the storage hormone. It does a lot of other things too, but it helps us store things in the
Mm-hmm.
cells, specifically turns sugar into fat and stores it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so if you're stressed and you eat sugar, and so you have cortisol and insulin both spiked at the same time, and then you have a fuel source, which is that sugar. Basically, you're just taking all of that stuff and storing it around your midsection, and then that's going to cause your energy to crash because then your blood sugar is really low.
Yeah.
and then you repeat the cycle until
Yeah.
even, that's why it's interesting too. Sometimes you see people that are like, have like a skinny arms and legs or something, but they have this kind of really large midsection, whether
Hmm.
it's in the hips or the lower abdomen or wherever. Those people usually have some kind of cortisol issue, and they're combining it with like sugar spiking carbohydrates.
Interesting. So that was one thing I wanted to interject is that you said if you eat something sugary, but I think we've said many times, correct me if I'm wrong, that like starchy carbs um, turn to sugar. That's just the
Yeah.
same, like a bowl of Wheaties and a package of Skittles both end up as sugar.
Oh yeah.
And
So carbohydrate is sugar,
yeah,
but they affect you in different ways, obviously, depending on how much fiber or
yeah,
or
yeah,
how whole the food is and stuff.
right.
But I mean, essentially, eating a piece of bread would be it would have a similar effect of just taking a spoonful of white table sugar and
Yeah,
eating that,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And
And yeah. I mean, we're not saying that some foods don't have the fiber and the nutrients that are better than that tablespoon of sugar. It's just knowing that your carbs that might come from vegetables and things like that are going to be a lot more nutrient dense and work with your body, those carbs, than something like sugar or something that turns to sugar that's processed or a starchy carb, something like that. But
yeah.
I do want to say because you said I'm not a doctor or anything, and I'm not a nutritionist and everything like that. So I'll go ahead in our show notes if you'll send me a link to like I asked you about the explanation of cortisol. If people want
Sure.
to know more about that, I bet you have some favorite sources
Oh yeah.
or a blog post or something like that where because we always want that disclaimer out there that we're not I certainly never want to represent myself as a speaker for the paleo community. I don't want them to completely kick me out. This show is just talking about what we are learning, and so take that with a grain of salt, people, and look in our show notes for links because we usually link to those doctors or scientists or people like Kiefer or the caveman doctor or somebody who can go a little more in depth and give those research based backup to what we're saying. People just really, we just encourage people just learn a little bit more. If we're giving you a taste of what cortisol is about, go learn a little bit or just kind of reflect. I don't think you need to be a doctor though, Jason, to talk about stress equals bad. I mean, I think everybody knows.
Stress equals good if you can control it in the right way.
Okay, that's an interesting thing you said. Tell me more about that.
So humans are adaptive creatures,
Uh-huh.
and without stress, we would die.
Mm,
And so what that means is our bodies have kind of evolved to expect stress, and that keeps our processes running correctly. And so that kind of exercise is a really easy example for that. If you never exercise, your muscles atrophy.
okay.
Why would they do that? Why wouldn't they just stay the same? But it's because they come to expect stress, and they have to have it in order to maintain themselves and to even improve with the right amount of stress. And
Okay.
so that applies to everything in our body. And so if we had no, for example, everybody may know a kid that grew up and their family was rich and he or she had no worries in the world, didn't have to work for anything, and got handed down this big endowment of money, and
Yeah.
then he or she ruined their own life, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of weird because in a way, if they had just experienced a little bit more hardship, they had to work a little harder for things, get a little bit more stress, then they would appreciate what they have, or maybe be able to even turn it into something better.
Wow.
And so it all kind of works that way. Everything from food to exercise to relationships even a relationship, if it's just too perfect, you just grow complacent and don't appreciate what you have, maybe.
Hmm.
And so you need to experience something else that maybe isn't quite as good, so you can go back and say, "Oh yeah, I really am glad that I'm family or friends with this person."
Isn't
So
that interesting? That's human nature. That is interesting. So our bodies feel physiologically work the same way in that you need you need to stress these systems, but then have the recovery from it. Is that the lesson?
yep, exactly. And so when I say we need stress, we need a small amount of stress every now and then in every type of arena, like exercise or even diet, which is a weird one to say that we need stress in diet, but most people have too much stress and it's constant in
Right.
these arenas, and that's where stress gets demonized and kind of ends up breaking you down and things like that. Just like a relationship where you have an argument every now and then, once in a blue moon, can actually be really healthy relationship. But if you're arguing 24/7, then that's just going to end up breaking both of you down and whatever. But so exercise, we need a little bit of stress every now and then, but we don't need to be jogging 24/7, for example,
Hmm.
because that kind of exercise is just drawn out, constant, long exercise, and your body quickly adapts to that.
Hmm.
And so once your body is adapted to a stressor, that stressor is no longer beneficial, you know?
Oh. When you say your
So,
body adapts to that, let's take I don't know. Well, the marathon runner, okay? Because I
sure.
trained for a half marathon a few years back. I want you to know I hated it, and I did. I did it. I loved the time with my girlfriends, but that was the thing is that we got out so often to do these long and short runs, long and short runs. The only part I really liked was the time with them. The repetitive running daily or even just regularly was I wondered after 6 months how come I didn't lose any weight. I mean, geez, I had really ramped up my physical activity amazingly. And I did the half marathon and I didn't stop. I mean, I was crawling across the finish line, but I was, this slow jog into the finish line. And, so how does that relate to what you were just saying again, real quick?
Sure. So, I think you said first of all you had the calorie myth guy on the show before, right? And
Yes,
um,
Jonathan Baylor.
yeah,
Love Jonathan
Jonathan.
Baylor.
And so yeah, and I'm sure he explains better than I do that calories in, calories out, and all of that is not quite as simple as people think it is, and that just because you're upping your exercise doesn't really mean you're burning off more of the food that you're eating. In
Hmm.
fact, jogging specifically, or like long steady state cardio, once your body adapts to that, it becomes very efficient, and
Mm.
it actually is not burning very many calories at all to do that. Not much more really than it would just be sitting around or just standing around or even walking.
Oh, good night.
And that's not to say that you should never jog or never do any aerobic exercise or anything like that. It's just that you quickly adapt to that. And you've had Andrea Jangle on your show before too, I think,
Yes,
right?
we have another favorite, AJ.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
she's awesome. And so she's a big proponent of progressive overload exercise. And basically, what that means is, if I go to the gym today and I run 5 minutes and I'm trying to get better at running, then the next time I go, I need to run 6 minutes or whatever, just yeah, at the same pace or whatever. And essentially, you're just kind of progressively making it harder. But there's a point where especially in endurance exercise, that benefit kind of drops off.
Mm.
So for those marathon runners out there, it's not that marathon running itself is evil or anything like that. It's just that you really, really need to vary up your training, especially like in off seasons and things like that. If you love marathon running, I'm not telling you to quit it,
Right.
but basically, I'm saying that your body adapts really well to the things that you give it. So
Hmm.
if you're constantly just running for that marathon, then your body is going to basically deteriorate all the muscles that are required for moving left and right. And it's also going to get rid of all the muscles required for climbing, jumping, squatting, throwing, catching,
Anything else?
twisting. That's right, anything else. It's becoming efficient at what you give it. So
Wow.
it's shedding all the excess. That's why you see basically top, marathon runners are like string beans
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And so they're seen as the epitome of health because they don't have a lot of the other common health issues like obesity or stuff like that. You can see their abs and whatnot,
You
but
know,
they have shed all of the rest of the things in the body that are necessary aside from marathon running. And so you can avoid that by varying it up, change it up, and lift weights for in the off season or just do body weight exercise of some sort. Move
hmm,
left and right, which is called lateral movement.
right.
And for athletes that have sports that are in one direction, like forward, like cycling, swimming, running, whatever it is, it's really important for those people to do lateral movement exercises, even if it's just doing a shuffle left and right with your feet, and maybe doing some throwing because that's like a twisting motion or something. I won't get into all of it, but basically, like you were saying, is that if you do something long enough, you adapt to it and you lose the benefit.
Well, that makes perfect sense. But who would think of that without you pointing that out? I mean, that just I would have never thought about that.
Yeah,
And
then the weird thing too, I didn't mean to interrupt. I
no,
had
go ahead, please.
just forgot that. So you adapt to the benefit because there is a benefit to running when you first starting it, getting into it and stuff. Um, Once you adapt to that benefit and you're no longer getting the benefit, and then you're just running a lot,
Yeah.
then that, like we said, exercise activates the fight or flight response, right?
Hmm.
And the fight or flight response elevates blood sugar and spikes cortisol and all of this stuff. And all of these signals are saying basically is like store fat around your midsection.
Hmm.
And different people stored fat in different places too, but that's kind of the primary area that those triggers store fat. And so
Wow.
that kind of comes back to what you were saying about the calories. Is you got into training for a marathon, a half marathon, and you trained for 6 months or whatever doing it, and you didn't lose any weight. And it's like, well, you probably adapted really early on to the whatever benefit could get, and then from there on out, you were basically signaling your body that I'm just going to be experiencing this constant stress for a while. So you probably should store some extra energy around, wherever you don't want it.
Right.
And
Just this is our new normal, body. Figure it out. Keep me
yeah,
where I am. And
exactly. Yeah.
oh God. There was a point with this is whenever I've told my story at the beginning, like in 2009, I'd started attending a boot camp and I didn't know how to get this weight off because I was working hard for the first time in my life and I really wasn't losing any weight. And we put a goal out 6 months out. I think I talked about it on your show where I was going to be in a competition where I had to get on stage in a bathing suit.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a physique thing. And I knew that if I had to do that, I don't care what it took, I was going to get this weight off. And it's amazing. With the right motivation, you can starve yourself skinny.
Oh yeah.
You can do that calorie thing. The thing that I learned in that was, yeah, I mean, I went down to very little calories. It was a lot of protein, so it was maintaining some of my muscle and excuse me, the horrific thing, I was happy when I got to Vegas. I was happy across the stage. I was happy that weekend. And when I got back, I had this plan of a very healthy new reality, a very healthy lifestyle. And the weight came back ridiculously fast. on
Mm-hmm.
a very low calorie. I mean, I was around 1,000 calories plus a lot of cardio. I wasn't going to stop doing my cardio because I knew I needed it, and training for a triathlon after that. And you know, I couldn't even stay in the starvation mode and keep the weight off once I like I couldn't maintain the low calories I was doing before the competition,
Right.
but even just a little bit more. And I was like, oh my God, I mean, is this what 40 is like? Is this it? And that was very sad that when people say it's not sustainable, well, even if I could sustain that low amount of calories and high amount of activity, my body wasn't going to keep it up. I mean,
Nope. Yep. Yeah, you're basically that's spot on. So um, the reason why a lot of diets end up popular is because almost any diet will work for a short period of time.
yeah,
And so the interesting thing with that is that the best thing that you can do is change stuff up,
yeah,
right? And so it comes back to that stress and adaptation. Whatever you've been doing, your body's used to it, and what the results you have right now is your body's response to the ingredients you've given it. So if you want to keep doing what you're doing now, then just keep doing it and do more of it if you want more of that response, right?
yeah.
So if like trying to watch your uh, fats or whatever is gaining you weight, then keep trying to avoiding fat and you'll gain more weight. And so the best thing you can do is change it up, right? So that doesn't matter. Any diet in the whole world is probably a change to what you're doing right now. And that'll get you some short-term results. And the key is finding the one that not only gets you short-term results, but also continues in the long run and is sustainable.
Right, right. And I went back and listened to the show I did with you, and when I said that whole healthy lifestyle is overrated, I don't think I explained well what I meant, but it's exactly what you're saying. I just meant that whenever I try anything for, this is going to be my new lifestyle, this is sustainable, I can sustain this. It works for a short amount of time, and then the weight starts coming back. And so that's all I meant, is that like my new lifestyle, I think is going to need to be a lifestyle of constant change,
Hmm.
and then but with some foundation,
Oh yeah,
obvious
yeah.
things like real food, more water, staying active, that kind of thing. I like that. I want to mention real quick. I just did a review for Ben Greenfield's book Beyond Training, and
Hmm.
he's Mr. Endurance athlete, and he's world class trainer and everything, so I'll link to his book. But it is interesting in the marathon part, exactly what you're saying. His whole book is about how to train for these endurance activities and sporting things. Well, that's a big part of the book. That's not the whole book. But a big part of it is how to do that without breaking your body down, without
Right.
breaking yourself. Because in the long run, these endurance athletes, they're good now, but check in with them 20 years down the road, and how are their knees and how is their, everything because of it. So, but his book is very cool for the layman too. It's a very thick resource on everything from you know the soccer mom that just wants to know a little bit more about how to do handle stress, or how to get better quality sleep, or anything like that. You don't have to read it cover to cover. It's a great index for finding the latest research on things. And he
Hmm.
says exactly what you were saying about, if you want to run marathons, running those long runs over and over again is not going to get you a better time. It's the variability in your training that's going to
Yep.
make you better. But I don't want to butcher his message either, but it sounded exactly like what you were saying.
Oh
You
no,
hit.
that's spot on. And so I'm a big proponent of this concept called anti-fragility. And
Tell
without
us about anti-fragility. I've seen that on your site, but I don't know what you mean.
Sure. So basically, the author Nassim Nicholas Taleb, and we can link to that too. That book and his work generally are very technical, if you will. Um, uh, he has a background in trading, like financial trading, and he uses math and sometimes complex math to kind of justify these things that he's witnessed and experienced. But basically, the concept is you have fragile, right, which everybody can understand.
Mm-hmm.
Fragile is something that can be broken by any random event, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have robust, which is what a lot of people think is the opposite of fragile, but it's not really. And so something that's robust is just something that doesn't break very easily, right? It can take a lot of stress and it won't break until the threshold is reached.
Okay.
Uh, but the opposite of fragile, anti-fragile, would
Mm-hmm.
be something that actually gets better from experiencing random stress or random
Ah.
events, right? So you don't just stay the same, you get better. And so in order to do that, coming back to what we were saying, it comes into that whole change thing. So you if you took your coffee cup and you put it on a table and there was an earthquake, then the coffee cup would be robust until the point it broke, and then it was fragile to that level of earthquake or whatever. But what
Ah.
if you put the coffee cup on the table and it experienced an earthquake and the very material of the cup itself started strengthening itself with every vibration until infinity or whatever. And so that's what we want to be, is that thing that can take stress and change and things from all different sides and grow from it, and
Right.
not just be stagnant or regressing or fragile.
Well, I
And
love
so,
that.
what's that?
I said I love that. That's great advice, but I think like we were just having a conversation the other day at work about how as we get older, um, we're finding, me and some of my friends, that we can handle a lot more than what we used to. Like we'll take on more responsibility at work than we
Hmm.
would have had the confidence to do earlier in life. And not just confidence, I'm not sure I could have handled all this stuff earlier on. It's like now I'm looking for a little bit more of a challenge at work. I really enjoy my job and I enjoy the link I have in education with my kids and everything. And I feel like it's because we've been through some things that we, with like we said, with like that Tough Mudder, or anything. And at work, I have the same kind of things, uh, successes and failures, and you start figuring out your breaking point is not where you thought it was. And in fact, you get stronger and better every time you have those challenges. And,
Yep, yep. It's
it's like,
exactly right. Yeah, it all comes back to stress and adaptation. So
huh,
Uh, you know, if you want to get better at something, you have to experience some stress in that arena, and then
hmm,
you will adapt and get better at it.
right.
And so, a good teacher and mentor that I had, his name is Ido Portal. And for folks that look him up on YouTube, you'll find like a really entertaining video of him flipping around and doing some really interesting acrobatic type stuff.
Is that ITO,
I
Ito?
IDO.
IDO, D like
Yep,
dog.
yep, and
Portal.
yep, and then basically the last name is spelled like portal,
Okay.
and so I trained under him for a few months, and I learned more about my body in that time than like any textbook or YouTube video or anything
Hmm.
that I've watched, and partly because it was just such a new experience for my body, the things that he had me doing, and so. He's a big proponent of generalist versus being a specialist.
Hmm.
And so in today's society, uh, not just in exercise, we're always trying to be like specializing in something because that's how you make your mark and that's how get to be an expert or get to be the best at something or whatever is to specialize into something very specific,
Okay.
right? And
Yeah.
so, and that's okay. And the problem is if you sacrifice all of the general stuff to specialize in that one thing, then you become set yourself up to be fragile,
Mm,
basically, because life is unpredictable and anything could happen at any time. And if you only know how to do this one thing, then you're leaving yourself fragile in a whole lot of other arenas. And
mm.
so the example from earlier, if you're an awesome marathon runner, but then something heavy falls on top of you, then that's just a random example I pulled out of nowhere. But
Right. If you're not lifting, if you're not strengthening your
yeah,
arm muscles,
actually,
let's say.
a better example is, let's say you're an elite marathon runner that never does anything with their arms resistance-wise. And then you want to put like a heavy suitcase in the bin on the airplane,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So for those folks that have been on an airplane before and put things overhead, it's always kind of an awkward ordeal.
Mm-hmm.
And a lady at my work, where I work, the ergonomics lady, said to never put anything in the overhead bin because you could tear your shoulder doing that.
Good
And
night.
so, yeah, and so I said, what? You know, like, are you kidding me? Like, oh yeah, I'm never gonna lift anything above my head because I could hurt myself.
Right.
Right. Well, yeah, sure, maybe if I spent my whole life sitting at a desk and I never lifted anything over my head before, it could be dangerous for me to do that. But that's not how I want to live. I want to cover my bases and
Right.
I want to lift stuff over my head so that when I do, I don't even have to think about being confident in doing it. And
I
so,
see.
that just so that
She may be talking to the average person that doesn't do shoulder workouts or
yeah,
anything,
yeah.
like that. I really like that idea of functional training too, of doing things that maybe aren't even necessarily in the gym with weights, but things outside and stuff that just has your body moving that way and
Oh
strengthening
yeah.
those muscles like that, so that when you get on the airplane, you don't worry about have I done enough reps to pick up this suitcase.
Definitely. Yeah, exactly. So you shouldn't even have to really think about
Right,
the challenge of lifting a suitcase overhead, right? I mean,
right,
if you do, then that means that you might need to address some of your general abilities in the movement exercise arena. And doing that repetitive, specialized training for something won't get you that.
right. So we don't want to be so niche and so focused and specialized in our training, I guess wouldn't be
Right.
ideal. Can you
Unless
bring
you're going to
I'm
be a
sorry.
pro at that sport,
Right?
and you're going to make a living and be paid and raise your family off of the money that you make from that, then that may be an arguably good excuse
But you should
to.
still cross train.
You should still cross train
I
for
mean,
sure.
even
Yeah,
if you're
yeah. I
doing
mean,
that, those guys I bet
yeah,
know that.
if- yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so bring it back around for us. For the average person who's really just looking at the day-to-day life, and we all have stresses. We have my 8-year-old daughter, 10-year-old son, 12-year-old son have stress in their lives. And I want to be a good example for them. I want to kind of live a life that isn't high stress, constant all the time. What do you recommend people do, like kind of as a first step of how you should analyze your day to day, and what should you consider as good
sure.
practice?
Yeah, and so as anything with change, you don't want to bite off more than you can chew, obviously. And so, what I don't recommend is thinking about everything that stresses you out in the whole world and try to tackle them all at once, because
Okay.
that is just too much stress, right? And so, I like to start people out with just trying to form one little habit of
Mm-hmm.
being mindful of their stress in the morning when you get up. And so, what, and I remember you asked at the very beginning, where can people start when they're getting into stress? And then I launched into all these topics and didn't even answer the question.
That's okay. No, I don't know if I asked that at all.
But basically, first thing in the morning, I recommend that people do a little parasympathetic nervous system activation. And
Okay,
so
okay,
that
hang on.
sounds complex.
You lost me. Shoo, over my
Yep,
head.
that
Say it
sounds
again.
pretty complex, right? But
Say
here's
it
how
one
it
more
works.
time. Say it one more time because it is a nice, fancy sounding thing I'm going to start doing in the morning.
Yeah, there you go. Do some parasympathetic nervous system activation.
Nice.
And so basically all you're doing though is some deep breathing. And
Okay.
so everybody breathes, I hope. And and what you can do is either lay in your bed or sit somewhere quiet
Uh-huh.
and just take 5 minutes to do some deep belly breathing
Okay.
and try to really focus on your lower abdomen and having it go in and out as far as you can uh, at a really kind of slow pace.
Okay.
And basically, what you can do is set a timer or something and look at it and inhale for 6 seconds, exhale for 6 seconds, and try to just turn it around really smoothly at the top and bottom of the inhale.
Okay.
And what you're doing there is if you have the time to breathe in your abdomen really deep and slow like that, you're
Mm-hmm.
signaling to your body that there's not stressful things going on right now. Because if you think about when you're working out, you start breathing real shallow and fast and it's mostly in your chest and shoulders and things like that, right? And
Right.
that's your response to a stressful situation. So breathing slow and deep in your abdomen is triggering your parasympathetic nervous system, which is that rest and digest system. And it also, once you get good at it, it might be a little hard at first actually to breathe in 6 seconds and out 6 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
That might be difficult for a lot of people, but it's good practice. And once you get good at it, because it's a stressor that you'll adapt to, once you get good at it, it'll be kind of an introduction to meditation for you
Oh.
because 5 minutes you're just concentrating on the breathing, and then eventually your mind may wander away once you get good at it and you don't have to really consciously think about it anymore. And so, go ahead.
So it's 5 minutes that you would recommend every morning just to take 5 minutes to
Yep,
do those breathing exercises.
yep.
And then are you saying once that isn't such a awkward feeling thing and you start feeling good about doing that, do you extend that time or you're using that 5 minutes a little more in a meditation kind of thing?
So
Same five
that
minutes?
depends on the person,
Okay.
and that what I don't want you to do is to think that you have to do it longer or something, and then eventually get to a point where you stop doing it because it takes too much time,
Yeah.
right? And so resting and recovering like this is one of those quote unquote stressors that you won't lose the adaptive benefits for a long time, right? So
Okay.
don't
Yeah.
worry about doing 5 minutes a day for the rest of your life. You won't like deteriorate from doing that like you would maybe if you were trying to flex your bicep for 5 minutes every day or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I would definitely recommend if you're comfortable with it to extend it out on up to 20 minutes or
Wow.
so over time.
Hmm.
And it takes practice to do that. And even getting that 6 seconds in, 6 seconds out breathing might be
Hmm.
hard for people to do for 5 minutes at first.
Hmm.
But that's okay. So just do it as long as you can, or if you can only do it for a few breaths, and then try to just breathe slowly for the rest of the 5 minutes. So actually, that technique I learned from a doctor, Dr. Romig in Austin, Texas,
Uh-huh.
and he actually is a clinical psychologist or psychiatrist, and he treats depression and psychological issues and all these mental disorders that we all have. And
Yeah.
but basically, he used to use medicine and a lot more traditional methods of treating these patients. And then he started, he obviously does the, communicative, like he talks to them and talks them through things. he started using this deep abdominal breathing, and after he started doing that, he had 70 patients that were suicidally depressed,
Eh,
and he cured 69 of them with
wow.
just abdominal breathing and verbal coaching.
What?
Yep, it's really weird, right? But essentially, they were there was just accumulation of this fight or flight response breaking these people down, and they had some other kind of psychological things that he was talking them through, but the combination was more powerful than any other medication or anything that he had used in his practice prior. And 69 out of 70 suicidally depressed people cured. He even had a woman come in with postpartum depression, and she wouldn't touch or get near her baby. And
Oh, yeah, that is a tough, tough, real thing.
it's very real, yeah, and it's really depressing, and it hits home with a lot of people, especially if you have children, to think that, you know, there's no love going to that child, there's no nutrition from breastfeeding or whatever,
Yeah,
and
all this stuff that baby needs so desperately in this, for,
yes,
formative time. And so
and
what did
so
he do for her?
yeah, her husband brought her in, and he said that when she walked in, she was all slumped over, like the posture even just screamed depression and all this stuff. And one hour session of this deep breathing and conversation with him, and she like popped out of her chair and was like, I can't wait to go home. Went home, like cuddled with her baby and breastfed it for the very first time in the
Wow.
baby's whole life. And it's not to say that everything was fixed in one session,
Right.
because she had to keep coming back, for a while. And just like any other treatment, she was coming back every other day at first, and then faded
Mhm.
off over time. But essentially, in one session of deep breathing and meaningful conversation with him, she like reversed her postpartum depression and went and got with her child for the first time.
Wow, that's
And
amazing.
her husband, who didn't appear to have any clinical psychological issues, came back like a week later and was like, I don't know what you're doing to her, but I want some of it too.
Wow, from
And
deep
so,
breathing.
yeah, just deep breathing. It's
See, I
interesting.
don't doubt that. I keep hearing about this abdominal breathing, and I don't know what people are talking about, but I've definitely heard that on other shows. And if it is all, everything is hormone related, from how we store fat, that like that whole postpartum thing, that's a hormonal thing. Your hormones are completely out of whack because of everything going on with actually creating a life and
Hmm.
sustaining it and everything. And so if it is all related, I can't imagine that a session with somebody, we know that there's benefits to talking through what's bothering you in addition to some breathing that might help off and change her hormones a little bit there in that hour, or at
Hmm.
least set her in the right direction. She may have just been, just that's just the beginning of the work she needed to do, but enough to change her mind about, I mean, who knows? Who are we
Yeah.
to
Oh,
say that that's not completely possible? And at least you sold me on taking 5 minutes out of my day. Good night. If
oh
I don't
yeah.
have 5 minutes to set my day up a little better. So is there benefit to doing those 5 minutes in the afternoon or the evening? Why first thing when you wake up?
Yeah, definitely. So there's definitely benefits doing it almost any time throughout the day,
Hmm.
but just like anybody, or at least if you're like me, as I get going throughout the day, I start, deprioritizing like working
Right.
out and
Hmm.
taking time for myself, and doing stuff like that gets pushed to the back of my mind as the
Right.
things throughout the day.
Right.
So one maybe could argue that that's a perfect time for me to go and take some
Hmm.
time to do 5 minutes, and that would be exactly right. But when you do it first thing in the morning, right when you wake up, and right when I say right when you wake up, it doesn't mean you can't like get up, use the restroom, drink some water or something like that.
Hmm.
Just whenever you get up and you're still in a pretty calm state, doing that 5 minutes right there, just like um setting yourself up with a good breakfast or something, really
Mhm.
sets you up for the rest of the day.
Mhm.
And so I would say if you're going to do it some other time in the day, that's awesome too. Still try to do it in the morning because you'd
Okay.
actually be more likely to do it later in the day if you did it in the morning
Yeah.
because you'll know how it felt that day. It'll be fresh in your mind,
Yeah.
and you don't have any distractions in the morning, or
Yeah.
at least fewer distractions. I know some people kind of wake up with a jolt and hit the coffee and go, but that's also another way to start slower into that process as well.
Okay. Well,
And
that's
so we actually, oh, just I was going to mention to folks that we actually built in a guided breathing practice into the app because I liked it so much and had learned so much from Dr. Romig and stuff. And for that portion of the app, you don't even need a heart rate monitor because for the heart rate variability piece, you do. But the app you can change the duration of the breathing, and there's like a circle that expands and contracts and
uh-huh.
helps guide you on the breathing in and out piece. So if you wanted, you could use the app as a guide, but really you just need a timer or something.
Yeah, and that's a perfect segue because that's what I wanted to ask you when I was about interrupting you is that I wanted to hear more about the free app because and I've heard people on other shows talking about your app. And so heart rate variability to me sounds like we want to look at our heart rate, and then of course it's going to vary with maybe how stressed you are, how fast your blood is pumping or whatever. So you've developed an app, and I'm not surprised that it's gotten very popular and that your show has gotten popular really quickly because like I said, this is something we all need to be paying attention to get more effective in anything else we're trying to do for ourselves, for fitness or
Hmm.
nutrition. So tell us just a little bit about this app. It's free, so we can all how can we find it? What's it going to do for us? And we do need
Sure.
to, if we want to use the entire thing, we need to purchase what even just an inexpensive heart rate monitor would be okay?
Yeah, so they're getting pretty cheap these days. I mean, compared to what they traditionally were.
Mm-hmm.
So the app itself, I'll go into the heart rate monitor in a sec. The app
Okay.
itself is called Elite HRV, which stands for Heart Rate Variability. And you
Okay.
can find, if you search Elite HRV on Google or the App Store or anywhere, you'll find that, and it's free.
Okay.
But in order to actually measure the heart rate and heart rate variability piece, you need to connect to a compatible heart rate strap. And so right now, since you're trying to connect to like your phone or a Bluetooth device, it's on iOS and Android. We're also going to be coming out with a Windows version in a little while, but
Okay.
um, it needs to have Bluetooth Smart, which is the low energy, newest Bluetooth, whatever. So iPhone 4S and up, and then most of the new Androids have that ability as well.
Okay.
And then you just need a Bluetooth Smart compatible heart rate monitor.
Okay.
And like we have a link to that on our website, elitehrv.com. But basically, it's just like a polar heart rate monitor that has Bluetooth, and we don't have any affiliation with them, with Polar or with any of the other heart rate monitors. So there's various ones that you could get.
Okay, but you have some links to some that you know for sure work with your.
Yes, yeah, we've tested out several, and we know for sure work. And the other piece to it too, I just want to address real quick on the heart rate monitor, if people are interested, is that some heart rate monitors are better quality and provide more accurate signal, more accurate
Oh,
heart rate measurements.
okay.
And we've tested for that as well. And so some heart rate monitors, like specifically wristbands and watches, tend to have Bluetooth but not be very accurate.
Ah,
And so they're accurate enough for heart rate, but not for heart rate variability, which leads me into what is heart rate variability,
mm-hmm.
right? So your heartbeat, it actually doesn't beat like a metronome. It's not like if you have 60 beats per minute that each one is 1 second apart, right? It does not work that way. And
Okay.
so your heart rate actually fluctuates between every single beat based on your sympathetic and your parasympathetic nervous systems.
Hmm.
So those are those two nervous systems that I said earlier. The sympathetic is the fight or flight. The parasympathetic is the rest and digest. Both
Mhm.
of those systems have control over your heartbeat, and they're both pulling on it and pushing on it and trying to say, no, we want to slow the heart down. We want to speed the heart up, slow it down, speed it up, slow it down, speed it up. And these systems are constantly tugging on your heart to speed it up and slow it down. And
Okay.
we can measure that. And based on the variability, like how consistent versus how erratic it is, you can tell how stressed you are and how much stress your body's experiencing.
Cool.
So yeah, pretty cool. I didn't mean to get into all that, but basically, the app measures that for you, and it gives you a picture at any given moment what your stress levels are doing. It also tells you what your stress capacity is, so how much capacity you have to handle more stress. And so,
Fascinating.
yeah, it's really interesting stuff. And of course, the first people to adopt it have been athletes, because athletes are always trying to optimize their training or trying to get that competitive edge. And so the app will basically give you, consequently, we lined it up to where it helps promote that morning breathing practice.
Mm-hmm.
In the morning, you take a reading for 2.5 minutes, and that could be the perfect segue into your 5-minute breathing practice.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and that tells you your stress baseline for the day. And so basically, should I go hard today? It gives you a green, yellow, or red light. Green light means you're golden compared to where you normally are. You should probably do some good exercise, or tackle that hard report you were meaning to write, or whatever it is that you're trying to do. You have a little extra capacity in the tank today. And then yellow and red are progressively more like, you should maybe take it a little more easy today. And then red, you should definitely like cancel whatever that meeting that you didn't need to do was, and spend 20 minutes doing breathing practice instead.
Uh-huh. Okay. That's fantastic that we can start using our technology to help us with our the most non-tech thing that we do, which is just taking care of ourselves at a baseline level and knowing where we can go from there each day. I'm totally going to download it right now. Well, I was before, but I just didn't know about it. I've been meaning to look into it and see. But when you have like a million things going on, it's just unfortunate that we put this stuff to the back burner or aside thinking, oh, no, no, I need to get more better with my diet, or I need to get more, and I'll worry about that later. When really your stress and where you are at a baseline and how much you can handle, that's got to be the foundation for everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting. Yeah, so we kind of took that into account, and like recommend that you do that morning reading, and then
Mm-hmm.
in the app it'll count for you how many days you've done it in a row.
Uh-huh.
And so that's kind of like an interesting indicator. As of yesterday, I had done 86 days in a row of in the morning just taking my reading and doing some deep breathing. And so I know that I've been prioritizing it pretty well over the
That's
past
good. That's
86 days.
awesome. Now you know what you need is a community like my Fitness Pal has, where everybody can online go, hey, good job, good streak, 85 days in a row, Jason, awesome.
Oh yeah, it's going to be very soon.
Awesome.
Yeah,
We love
the
communities
developer that
over
I
here.
work with is really good, and we're adding new features like weekly. So
That's fantastic. Kudos, man, because what a cool thing for you to do. So we'll definitely link to that in the show notes and how people can connect with all this stuff. We have so many great links to put in today, for everything you talked about, which is wonderful, all of your stuff. And tell us your website again just one more time, because I know through your website you can find all kinds of these other links.
definitely. So you can find my podcast and blog and things at dominatestress.com.
Great.
And I probably should put a little more about the app on there. There isn't a lot on there, but regardless, if you're interested in the app, you could also look at elitehrv.com.
Okay, fantastic. I'm also going to put a link where I was on your show a couple of weeks ago, and
Awesome.
that was a fun time when I went back and listened. Jason, I didn't let you speak at all.
Oh, nah.
I
That's
can't
the point.
figure.
The co-host, I mean, I've been chatting it up today, so
Well,
we're even now.
I'm so glad to have you on because, I have a bunch of questions for you too. But yeah, when you're a host, you're kind of listening to the other person's story and interjecting. And man, all you had to do was say, "So tell us a little bit about yourself, Carol." In the next 45 minutes, I did not shut up. But it was great. I really enjoyed being on your show and just kind of talking about my journey and things that I feel like I've learned so far. And what's funny is I've gone back and listened to that show just to self-talk because a lot of the things I say I need to hear. It's
Mhm.
it's it's great to talk and give this stuff lip service, but you know, there's a lot of things that I just need to keep reminding myself that I believe, and this taking things down a notch and everything you're talking about today. I need that reinforcement of oh yeah, that's what I believe. I need to slow down and calm down and take some time out. Just like I was saying, I want to be a good example for my kids, if nothing else. That I mean, they're kids, so they get a lot of play and stuff, but they have stress, and they see their dad and I dealing with stress, and I don't want to just be snapping at them all the time and everything. So
Right.
I appreciate everything you're doing, and congratulations on your success with your show and with your app and everything. Are you going to be going? We're wrapping up the show, but are you going to Paleo FX in October? Do you think?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm going to be at Ancestral Health Symposium, which is in
Oh,
San Francisco in August,
great.
and I'll be at Paleo. Actually, got somehow they're going to let me speak on stage at that Ancestral one. They must have not
Awesome.
not met me before or something, but
No, you were great at Paleo FX in Austin, so I'm sure they do want you back or over at that one too. I know that
yeah.
one's a little more sciency. I've heard, and
Yeah, that one's more, it's going to be a little nerve-wracking to have doctors and people in the audience listening to me. So
no,
there's
you
that piece. And then I'll be at Paleo FX in Denver in October.
okay?
And
Okay,
another one too, really interesting, is I'm going to be on a online stress conversion summit, and that's based out of Australia.
cool,
And that's going to be live in August, and that's going to be streamed online. And
fantastic.
so I'll
Did
give
you
you a
just
link to
post?
where people can check that out. And through that, they for the summits and conferences and whatnot, they tell you to put together a little package to give away to people for those. So your listeners could go get that as well. Giving
Great,
away like a little ebook that is about 7 stress dominating hacks for the
awesome.
busy professional.
Okay,
And
cool. We need that.
yeah, so it's a little thing. I think they're gonna. I told them I didn't want to like charge a lot for it, so I'm gonna charge like $3 or $4 or something like that for people because they're looking to for me to sell something. But everything I do is give away for free. So
Yeah, great. No,
like,
we love the free.
yeah,
Well, thanks, Jason. Definitely send us that link. But then again, as we get closer to August and September and October, the speaking engagements you have, please remind me to put those links at that time and push it out, and through Facebook and in the shows that we're doing at that time to make sure people remember um, to tune in because we want to be able to get these things for free and hear and all this stuff when you're actually going to be speaking. So, and I think I'm going to Paleo FX too, pretty sure in October. I wish there was a little more out there right now about Paleo FX in
yeah,
October.
yeah.
Um, yeah, Michelle Norris just posted something on Facebook that they're a little behind because they don't have their website operable, so they're getting a little stressed. She said
Oh
it's
yeah.
a little
Oh, I mean,
stressful.
Keith and Michelle, who run that show, are just awesome. I can't believe they
Yeah,
put on such a huge show, and it's,
amazing.
really, it's just the two of them, and now they have a little bit of hired help, but they do a lot for just being the two of them most of the time.
That's the problem, is it's so fantastic in Austin. The bar is so high that if they're going to try to do this October one, we're like, well, where's the Facebook page for accommodations? Where's the Facebook ride share? Where's the,
Yeah.
and she's like, we're trying over here. So definitely people stay tuned because once they are operable with registration and everything, we'll help them get that message out. I mean, what a great town to be in, Denver in October, and
Oh yeah,
it'll be
it's
a
gonna be
blast.
fun.
Yeah, that's going to be great. So I do. I want to wrap up really quickly. There's a couple of links I want to get people to make sure that they know if they are listening to this in the next day or two. There's a movie out there right now but usually it's going to cost about $14 or $15. But right now through July 4th, if you download this show immediately, go watch Serial Killers, and I will have a link in the show notes for that. It is fantastic. It is a documentary. Again, it's free to watch through July 4th, but then it's going to cost. And it's a whole documentary. It's super worth it to watch this guy who is an athlete. He is a professional athlete in Australia. His name is Donald O'Neill. And he just hacks his life for like a month because he finds out he's pre-diabetic and his dad has a heart attack, and both of them are very healthy athletes, but he starts realizing that the sugars and the grains are working against him. And so you follow him over a month of eating more ancestrally. He calls it a high fat diet, but really it's because his fats are coming from animal proteins and animal sources and eggs and things like that. Yeah. So it's not like he's drinking oil or anything. So just for people who want to see just kind of a little bit different take on this whole high fat, to watch this documentary. It's fantastic. So I'm going to put a link for Serial Killers. Cereal, like breakfast cereal, is the. Have you heard of this show, Jason?
I actually got a text like yesterday saying that I needed to go watch it, and yeah. I was on my way back from San Francisco, so I didn't get a chance yet.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's really good, and it's funny, it's humorous, it's interesting. So yeah, definitely. People check that out. Also, Jonathan Baylor, we mentioned Jonathan before, and I do want to put a link because he has these 3-minute little videos coming out. It's called The Quest. Now I can't remember exactly what he's calling it. It's a quest for to end the calorie myths. So we definitely want to all, if you have 3 minutes, these are wonderful little shorts to share with people. It's called The Quest to End the Calorie Myth. And you can subscribe and you get these little, like the first one was, do calories really matter, or something like that. And then the next one I loved was, is eating healthier more expensive or not? It's just a 3-minute video of things to consider, and it's wonderful. And one of the points he makes, is that spinach and different things, they don't have to be organic to be better than some of the cheaper, or even more expensive things, and how much it's just very interesting how he lays it all out in 3 minutes, how you can go to the grocery store and eat a lot healthier, and it does not have to be more expensive. So definitely, I don't want to butcher his message, but I'll put links for his Quest to End the Calorie Myth videos. Those are fantastic. Also want to shout out to our folks, because we did that Tough Mudder last month, and people are like, okay, when are you going to do your next one? Well, I'm for sure going to do another Tough Mudder in the next year or so, probably in the spring. But what's super interesting to me and fantastic, and I want to shout out, is several people on our team have decided to do their own Tough Mudders, lead their own teams in other cities. So that's even better if you can get more people to spread the love and go out further. So Jack Templin is doing Dallas in October. Lisa Jarman is pretty sure she's going to do Florida and Kissimmee, and I think that's November. Erin Krieger is doing Michigan here in the next month. And Elena Duracell, who was our lost mother, the one that we lost, she is here in Houston, and she's probably going to do the spring. But she's doing little mudders between now and then with friends. I just think that this is fantastic. You do not have to do mud runs, but community-based things like your paleo meetup, things that you can invite people to that are not threatening, that are just fun.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, those can be game changers for the people in your life. I really don't think we're going to change a lot of folks' attitudes by spouting off our views on nutrition and science and what they're doing wrong.
No, that's the other thing, that if anyone's looking to get into their stress, aside from morning breathing, and there's a million other things you can do, but one of the most important things too is to find other people that help you de-stress.
Yeah.
And be around those people.
Right? That remind you that, hey, this could be a good thing if you look at it this way, or don't get so stressed out about it, that kind of thing. Those friends are super important. I know I have too many areas of my life where I'm not doing everything the way I want to be doing it. So just remembering that it's a journey, and right. It's, Stephen Woody was on the show last week, and that it's the tally at the end of the week or day or year of everything you've done. It's not what you're doing like this minute that needs to make or break you. Hearing from people in our community like that, or your friends, can go a long way in how you look at your day.
Oh, yep.
So fantastic to all our mutters out there and people that are people like Michelle Gabovix, who this is one of our listeners who has this Fitness with Friends website, and she's constantly liking everything on our Facebook page and constantly sharing, and so she's a hero of mine too. I want to read real quick some feedback. I mean, a couple of reviews on iTunes, just really quickly, because we really want to honor this. Really helps the show if you can leave us a review in iTunes. So I'm super grateful for these two people. The first one, this is a great review because it says, Carol is a babe.
Oh, nice.
It's 5 stars, but I can say this because her name is Amber.
I was going to say, for all the audio listeners, that means they need to get over on the video portion, right?
Right. She's just being sweet. This is Amber Dextrous, and thank you so much. She says it's a fun show, thought-provoking subjects, and good information. And of course, that made my day. Thank you, Amber. That is fantastic. Thank you so much for the review. The review is super helpful. And then we have one by CCCCCWWWWW. I don't think that's their real name, but they put great job, Carol, and also gave us 5 stars. And this review says, I have been a subscribed listener from the beginning. I only have limited time to listen to all my podcasts, driving, mowing, when working out, so I always have a backlog of things to listen to. Good problem, though. I do have a problem, though. I'm on episode 56, I believe, about the Pareto principle, and I'm missing the next few episodes up until an episode with Sean Heron, which is 61 or 62, I think. How can I get those lost episodes? I'm excited to hear about Houston Tough Mudder. Okay, well, CCCCWWWW, thank you. Thanks for the kind words and the great review, the 5 stars. What you can do, there's a couple things you can do. You can go to our website at Fat2FitHQ.com, and that is has episodes all the way back to episode number 1. So you could go to our website, again, it's the number 2, Fat2FitHQ.com, and just scroll down, and at the bottom of the page, you hit, the next page, and you go all the way back to episode 1. But then also in iTunes, Jake Challen gave us some instructions a while back on how to load prior episodes that aren't in iTunes anymore. And unfortunately, I don't know what that is. I should have had that, but I'll put it in the show notes and I'll talk about it on the next show. So look at our show notes today. They're at Fat2FitHQ.com/097, and down at the bottom of our show notes, I'll put some feedback in there about how to get that through iTunes. But definitely you can always go to our website. We have all the old shows at the website. So sorry that I didn't have an answer for you to talk about today, but I definitely will next week. And it sounds like you have a lot to listen to right now, so you have a week to find out. The other thing, too, is we did ask people to share the show, and thank you to everybody who shared it on Facebook. I'm going to go and look at the shares of any of these episodes, anything that you share on your Facebook page, on your wall. I'm going to do a drawing in a couple of days and send a T-shirt out for thanks to people. But we really just appreciate you sharing the show with anybody so that we can have a little more community, because our community has grown quite a bit, but not really too much on Facebook and not really too much on Twitter, because I just don't have time to do that whole promoting thing. So anything you guys can do to help the show and share it is hugely helpful. So connect with us. We have some links in the show notes on how you can get in our groups on MyFitnessPal and on the Fat2Fit Fitbitter site and our Spark team. Ways to connect with us between the shows. We have just awesome people like Howie and Angela and other people in our communities that are just talking all week long and have weekly check-ins and different things, and I appreciate everybody for doing that so much. So, hey, Jason, what else? What am I forgetting? Anything that we forgot to talk about? We talked about everything.
No, the U.S. is still in the World Cup, and I have a sunburn, so those are the two.
We didn't address your sunburn. You went to California to visit your brother. Is that it?
Yeah. I have a friend who is in the airline business, and so he hooked me up with a buddy pass, and we went and visited my brother who's in the military, and I haven't seen him in a few months, and
Awesome.
so he's roughing it really bad out there in California, on
Beautiful
base
weather.
on a beach, and you know, getting paid to learn a foreign language essentially.
Yeah. Hey, man. You know what though? He signed up, and if we need him, he's gonna defend our country. So
Oh
he
yeah,
can have
no,
some.
he's actually just at the beginning. He's got 6 more years of contract, so at least.
Awesome.
So yeah, I'm hats off to him. I'm proud of him for doing all that.
Absolutely. This community really appreciates him. You tell him we thank him for his service and everything he's doing. We're big fans of your brothers and yours. Thank you again, Jason. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Heal well, get some aloe on that face or something.
There you go.
And we'll be talking, we'll be chatting soon. Thanks again for everything. It was just a wonderful talk, and we'll try to keep in mind what you're telling us about our stress.
Okay, good. Yeah, appreciate it, and thanks everyone for listening, and thanks Carol for letting me co-host and chat my head off.
Absolutely, absolutely. Next week we're going to have Jay Charvas and Jeff Fry guest host because I'm taking a week off.
Oh,
And
nice.
yeah, I know. So those two guys are going to be guest hosts. So definitely stay tuned for the show that comes out right after the 4th of July the following week. They'll be talking about their adventures and things they've learned and things they'd rather do differently if they had it to do all over again. So
Very
maybe
cool.
you can guest host a show for us sometime. I'm trying to figure out how to manage this whole podcast thing. So we'll stay in
Yeah,
touch.
let me know.
All right, all right. Okay, so we'll talk to you soon. Thanks again, Jason. Have a great day.
Yeah, thanks. You too, Carol. Thanks everyone.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.